Okay, so for problem number 1, we're writing a number sentence based off of the diagram for the number line. Remember, when we start off with the number lines, the only kind of problem that you can do is an addition problem on the number line. These are all addition problems. The first number starts at 0 and is going to -2. That means that our first value is -2. Plus, now that we're moving to the right, remember, right number is positive. And a lot of people are getting confused and they were putting that they're adding 1. But if I add 1, if I take -2 and add 1, it only moves me 1 spot. You have to count how many spots you're actually moving. So you moved 1, 2, 3 spots to get to -1, or sorry, to +1. So here's the number sentence. -2 plus 3 is equal to 1. -2 plus 3 is equal to 1. For problem number 2, writing a number sentence using those counters. Remember, again, it is an addition problem. The first number is a positive 5, because we have 5 plus signs, or 5 positive counters. The second number is a -6, because we have 6 negative counters. And remember that every positive can be 0 paired with a negative. So we can 0 pair 5 pairs, leaving us with 1 negative left over. So there's our number sentence. For the last problem, a plane is 874 feet above sea. A dolphin is 12 feet below sea. How can you tell their distance apart? So we want to know what kind of sentence, what number sentence can we create that'll show the distance apart. You're going to have a question just like this on your test, guys. So if you want to star it, that way you know that, hey, this is a question that I need to remember how to do. You need to keep in mind that with a problem like this, the fact that they're asking for the distance, okay, because it's distance, we're focusing on the absolute values. You must use absolute value. Whenever we have a problem about distance, you must use the absolute value. So we're going to combine their absolute values together. So think of it this way. If we've got our little water here, our water level is at 0, right? 0 is our neutral spot. That's the water level. You've got your dolphin. Your dolphin is at -12 feet below the water. The dolphin's at -12 feet below. So if I take the absolute value of that, then that means from 0 down to where the dolphin is, that's a distance of 12. Then to get up to where the plane is, to get to the plane is at 874 feet. So if I take the absolute value of 874 feet, then that tells me that the plane is 874 feet above the water. So now I want to know how far apart are they. So I'm going to combine, guys, you're talking, shut your mouth. You're going to combine those distances together. So that's why you have to take the absolute value of them. You're not going to add a negative. You're going to add the absolute value of that negative. So the problem is going to look like 874, absolute value of it, plus the absolute value of that -12. You're combining those distances, but distance must always take the absolute value. You combine the distances that they are from ground zero, from the water, Combine those distances, but take the absolute value of those numbers. So absolute value of 874 is 874. Absolute value of negative 12 is 12. When we combine those together, you're going to get 886 feet apart. This is your number sentence. You need to know how to set that up. Because again, like I said, on the test, it's not necessarily that you have to find the answer. It's how do you set the problem up correctly. That's cognitive learning. Are there any questions about this bell work? Okay, go ahead and flip over to page 8. Our notes are real quick today, and then you've got a quizzes activity, an assignment. Notes are real quick today. I'm going to flip it in like 10 seconds, okay? Hey girls, I'll hand it over to you if you need it, okay? Let me flip, okay? All right, we're on page 8 of the notebook. All right, multiplication and division rules. With multiplication and division, this that I'm about to show you only works for multiplication and division. It will only work for multiplication and division. EJ, hush. If you try using this with any other operation, you're going to wind up getting it wrong. So please remember that this is only for multiplication and division. And I do have to say, I'm going through your all's quizzes. I'm a little bit disappointed to see how many of you missed the last 4 questions when you were told you could use a calculator. Please tell me, how is it possible that you can miss those last 4 questions when they are just calculator questions of you typing it in and hitting enter? So you guys need to make sure that you're keeping in mind when I tell you to use your calculator, use your calculator, okay? I'm showing you the rules because I just want to refresh your memory, but we are in a calculator setting now. So please get used to using it. Don't just go based off of what you think you might know. Now, for multiplication and division, make yourself a triangle, and at the top of your triangle, go ahead and put a positive sign. And in the bottom 2 base angles, put 2 negative signs. This is your multiplication and division rule. That if you have a negative number, like negative 3, and you are multiplying it by a positive number, you can easily identify what the answer is going to be by using the triangle. I have a negative, so I'm going to cover it. And I have a positive, I'm going to cover that. And whatever is left remaining showing is my answer. So it's a negative answer. This is going to be a negative. And then like normal, just multiply 3 and 2, which would be 6. So negative 3 times negative 2, or negative 3 times positive 2 is negative 6. Okay? Same thing, let's say I have two negatives. I've got a negative 5. And I'm multiplying it by a negative 4. A negative 5 times a negative 4. So I've got a negative and a negative. What am I left with? A positive. So two negatives multiplied together will actually equal a positive. Now I know that sounds confusing, but you got to think about it if you were to think of it in the English language. If you were to say that I'm not going to call you. If I'm not going to call you, does that mean I'm going to call you? Yes. When I say I'm not calling you, then I'm not calling you. That's one negative. One negative gives you a negative response. But when I have a double negative in the English language, it actually results in a positive response. When I say I'm not going to call you, that means I am going to wind up calling you. Double negatives negate each other. It's the same thing here with multiplication and division. Double negatives negate each other and you get a positive result. Okay? Same thing for division. If I have negative 20 and I'm dividing it by a negative 2, again, I have a double negative. So both my negatives in the triangle are being covered up and I'm left with a positive left over. So that means my answer is going to be a positive 10 because 20 divided by 2 is 10. If I've got a positive number and I'm dividing it by a negative number, again, I have a positive that's going to get covered. I have a negative that's going to get covered. And what am I left with? A negative. So I get a negative 4. This triangle, once again, only works for multiplication and division. It's not for addition, it's not for subtraction. You guys already learned those rules. All right, let's talk about some phrases. If we are talking about word problems, for multiplication, some of the words that you might learn or use or see in a word problem would be things like product. If you see the word product in a word problem, that means it's a multiplication problem. If you see the word times, that's an obvious one. Multiplied by is an obvious one. But here are two that you might not think of. The word of. If I say it's 1/4 of the final price, that means I'm taking 1/4 and I'm multiplying it by whatever the final price was, and that's going to equal my value. The term of can mean multiplication. So do the words per, each, and every. God bless you. Per, each, and every. Okay, I'm going to walk 7 miles every day for 1 week. How many miles am I going to walk for the week? You would do 7 times, 7 days a week, right? I'm going to give 5 bonus points per child that's quiet. Okay, so that means I would take however many kids who are being quiet and multiply that by 5. That's the total bonus points that I would be giving out. Braxton, what's wrong with your hand? All right, division. Division words that you could be looking for. Quotient. The quotient, that represents a division problem. And then groups of equal size. When you see that we're breaking things apart by equal size. So if I say, okay, I made 48 cookies, and I've got 12 students that I want to give these cookies out to, and I want to make sure every student has an equal number of cookies. That's division. I would take my 48 cookies and divide it by the 12 students to find out that each kid's going to get 4 cookies. Division means you're breaking a total up into equal portion sizes or equal sized portions, okay? All right, so we're just going to get down a couple of examples and then you can get into your quizzes activity. Please keep in mind when I let you go into the quizzes activity, it's an individual assignment. It's not a group assignment. It is randomized for a reason. 2, you don't get to redo it. So when you get your final score, that's the score that goes in the grade book. So please make sure you're taking your time and not rushing. Okay? Yes, dear. You always may use your notes. The only time that you can't use your notes in the class is when it's a test. You can use your notes for quizzes and for assignments. Always. In fact, it's strongly encouraged. Okay? All right, so here's our 2 examples. Say Alana. Alana has an overdrawn account. She's got an overdrawn amount of $25 every day for 4 days. So I want to know how much total is her account overdrawn by. Alana has an overdrawn amount of $25 every day for 4 days. So how much total is her account overdrawn by? So in situations like these, the first thing that you always want to do is figure out what the operation is going to be. Identify key words that would represent your operation. The second thing that you need to do is identify what type of numbers are you dealing with. Are you dealing with positives, negatives, combination of the two? So in this situation, who could raise their hand and tell me what operation are we going to do? Multiplication. What word told you multiplication? Every. So remember, per, each, and every. Per, each, and every represent multiplication. So this right here tells me that I'm going to multiply 2 numbers together. So now let's focus on our numbers. We've got 25 and we've got 4. Let's start with the 25. Is 25 going to be a positive or negative number?
Positive. Negative.
Why negative?
Because it's overdrawn.
It's overdrawn. So guys, those of you who don't know, if you've got a bank account, let's say I've got $10 in my bank account, and then I went ahead and I decided I need $30 out of my bank. The bank's going to let me do it, but they're going to charge me, and they're going to say you've overdrawn, which means you went into the negative zone. Shh. So if I go, okay, I have $10 in my account, I'm going to pull out 30. That means I've overdrawn by 20. So that means my account now has negative $20 in it. So then the next day I get paid and I put $50 in my account. Does that mean I have $50 in my account?
No.
No. I first have to give them back the 20 that they let me borrow. And really, when you overdraw in a bank account, you never want to do that, because when you overdraw, they charge you for it too. So not only am I going to have to give them back the $20 I borrowed, but on top of it, they tend to charge you like a $5 to $10 fee for overdrawing. So you always want to make sure you're careful about that. Don't ever overdraw in a bank account. If you can't pay for it, don't buy it. Okay? All right, so overdrawn. Overdrawn means that it is negative. So let's go ahead and highlight that in pink, right? Because our red kind of lets us know that's our negative amount. We're dealing with a negative 25. Now 4 days. 4 days, is that positive or negative? Positive, right? Time is always positive. Michael, put your mask back on. Time is always positive. Just like distance is always going to be positive, time is always positive. There's no such thing as negative days. So we're going to put that in green as our positive amount. And now we just multiply. Remember, a negative times a positive gives us a negative answer. So we would have negative $100 that our account is overdrawn by. Negative $100 that our account would be overdrawn by. So be careful. You don't want to ever overdraw. All right. Number 2. Alex's team lost a total of 54 yards. So we'll say they're playing the first quarter. First quarter they lost 54 yards. And we'll say all 9 players lost the same amount. So individually, every player lost an equal amount of yardage. So I want to know how much did each player lose? How much did each player lose? Alex's team lost a total of 54 yards. All players lost the same amount. How much did each player lose? So what operation are we thinking, Robert?
Division.
Division. Why?
Because each player.
Well, not the each, but same amount. Same amount. They all lost the same amount. So remember, when we talk about division, we're talking about breaking it up into equal size portions, right? Equal parts. So if they all lost the same exact amount, okay, you lost some yards, you lost the same amount of yards, you lost the same amount of yards, and all together it's going to create this 54 yards. Okay, so the fact that they've all lost it at the same rate, okay, they lost the same amount, that's going to be our division. That shows us we are breaking this up into equal parts. Okay, Alex's team lost a total, so remember when it's division, you take the total and divide it into parts. So the total is going to go first. They totally lost 54 yards. Is that positive or negative? Negative. It's lost. They lost a total of 54 yards. That right there is a negative number, boys. Negative 54. Now they're splitting it amongst 9 players. Now again, people, that's positive. 9 players, that's going to be a positive. And now we're going to break it apart. So negative 54 divided by 9 is what? What's negative 54 divided by 9? You guys got calculators right in front of you. Use it. Aiden, what'd you get?
Negative 6.
Thanks, Aiden. Negative 6. Okay. So what you're going to do now is you're going to get onto Google Classroom, and the quizzes assignment has been assigned to you.